To answer it, I will actually maybe go back a little bit in time to 1993 to give our listeners a little bit of the background. So overall, Poland has a very restrictive abortion law. It was signed in 1993 as a result of sort of a compromise, which is a word we really do not like in this country for many political reasons, but also because of abortion. It was a decision of the Catholic Church at that time and the liberal elite that was in power to restrict abortion to only three cases, mainly rape or incest, threat to women's life, or fetal deficiencies. So as you can see, already even a year or 2 or 3 ago, we already had a very restrictive abortion law, one of the most restrictive in Europe. And as a result, there were very few legal abortions performed in Poland. Our statistics say that about 1,100 abortions a year were performed in Poland, legal abortions, let me stress this out. Which in a country of 38 million people, it's a really small number. As you probably can guess, many more women had abortions, and the number that is estimated by women's NGO is that of at least 100,000. If not 200,000. So the estimates are vary, but okay, let's take the lowest numbers, around 100,000. So when you compare it to the amount of legal abortions, you clearly see that there's that the law is restrictive. It's not adequate to the social situation. If you ask me how women had abortions in Poland, looking at the statistics of the NGOs, the answer is many of them did not have them in Poland. They would have them in neighbor countries. With Poland being a member of the European Union, naturally, many women chose Germany, but also the Czech Republic is a very popular destination, so is Slovakia, and so is Belarus. So we have this abortion tourism to neighbor countries. There's also abortion underground in Poland with many doctors involved. This is, of course, a huge secret. It's extremely difficult to obtain access to it, and it's very costly. So for lower income women, so yes, again, so abortion is legal, but extremely limited, and the most limited it's to low income women, because better off women, even if they're not allowed, because they don't meet any of these criteria, if they're not allowed to have abortion in a public hospital, they will opt a private hospital, and they can, or they will go abroad. So we had a really discriminatory law in Poland already to start with. In 2015, we had a change in power in Poland, and a conservative government was formed. It was formed with the assistance, with the help of the more conservative, more extreme wing of the Polish Catholic Church. In Poland, to win elections, you often need the blessing of the church. Poland is, or maybe was, a very religious society. And unlike the abortion compromise from 1993, which was still made with a more, I wouldn't say progressive, but more liberal wing of the church, this new government was in an alliance with the definitely more extreme church, a wing of the church. So as you can expect, as we all expected, there would be a push to restrict the already restrictive abortion law. And this happened in 2016. The first attempt was made in the Polish parliament, when the first bill to further limit abortion, especially to eliminate the fetal abnormality as a reason, was introduced. And at that time, it did not pass in the parliament. Instead, it generated wide protest in Poland. Women came in huge numbers in big cities, small towns, wearing black umbrellas, and these protests became known as black protests. Under the pressure, the government withdrew, the ruling party withdrew from the initiative, and sort of put it to the back burner. And then the pandemic came in 2020. And this is the biggest blow to women's rights in Poland, because together with the pandemic that already strained women more than, Polish women overall are very busy. They work a lot. They spend a lot of time doing house chores, more than the European average, as we see in statistics. And at that time when we were closing down everything, women were teachers, housekeepers, workers. They also found out that their reproductive rights are being further restricted, because in the parliament at that time, a legislative initiative was introduced. It was not proposed by a political party, but by a group of over 100 citizens. The Polish law allows for such initiatives to enter the parliament for consideration, possibly become law. This was backed by an extreme organization called Ordo Juris. It is a relatively new organization in Poland, operating since 2012 or 13, I believe. Sort of a legal organization protecting the natural law, the traditional values that come with this, and this is an organization that teams up with pro-life groups. It also is it's quite large and expanding, and quite well equipped with financial resources, and this raises some questions, especially among women organizations or even the opposition. Where does the money come from? There is even suspicion that some money might be coming from Russia for this organization. So this organization, together with the pro-life group, gathered the required amount of signatures, and as our legal system and parliamentary system indicates, stipulates that their proposal had to be read in the parliament. And this was a shock to many women, because, as I said, they were being locked in houses. So all they could do is they couldn't go to the street. So many Polish women hang out black umbrellas from their windows, or protest posters, and a lot of things were homemade, just hanging in their windows. The government withdrew from this initiative quickly. Actually did not receive a parliamentary majority, and again for some time we thought that things were being sort of calmed down, until in end of October, the Constitutional Tribunal, which unfortunately in Poland right now it's a political body, heavily politicized, teamed with the government. It's the body responsible for determining whether laws are in accordance with the Constitution. And the tribunal declared that abortion in a situation of fetal abnormality is not in accordance with the Polish Constitution, because it does not protect human life. As I mentioned to you before, that the Polish statistics are very low in regards to performed legal abortions. The abortions performed because of fetal abnormality are clearly the biggest. So when we had 1,100 abortions legal abortions in 2019, 1,074 of them were because of the legal fatality. This means that banning this element of the law means total ban of abortion in Poland. And this decision by the court came at a very bad moment, because this is the moment when we are entering the second wave of the pandemic. Again, we were locking down the economy, we were closing down schools, and but at this point, women said no. Even despite, this was not the initial shock like it was in April. We already knew the pandemic a little bit, and women came to the streets and came in big numbers. They went to protest in small towns again, in big towns. Actually, the police in the beginning was very supportive to women, and not even showing signs of solidarity, sometimes even marching with women. Definitely not showing any signs of brutality. This unfortunately has changed later on. So again, the topic stopped for a little bit because the court only announced the decision but didn't publish it yet. For this decision to be binding, it has to be published. So for a few months, we didn't know what would happen. Maybe the court would decide they won't publish, but we were skeptical. We were almost certain that they would. And they did. They published the verdict in January, and again you saw mass protests against this decision on the streets of Polish towns. This time we have seen much more police brutality. The government actually started reacting. There was a anti-women rhetoric present in right-wing media, also on public television, which is also subject, is under the influence of the government. So yes, and for the moment, this is the binding law. I think the LGBT community for sure needs the biggest support. So I would direct my efforts towards this community. They also need acts of solidarity. Yes, they need especially young people, LGBT community, young women. They need to see that what they are fighting for is the European value, and that Europe supports that and believes in that. So I think any gestures of solidarity outside Poland help them stay strong in their beliefs. Because, you know, in Poland, actually, the problem was, I'm actually, given the dire situation right now, I'm actually optimistic. I might surprise you. But for us, when we look at the mistakes we've made in the last 20 years, and clearly we've made mistakes, otherwise we wouldn't be where we are right now. Yes, it's not, I don't want to say that Polish society is, you know, nationalistically minded. It's a society like any other society. And the political situation is a reflection of people's frustrations, of the arrogance of the political elite in the past. In some way, it was a rational choice. You might agree or disagree with this, but it was not, we are not a herd of sheep. People voted for whom they voted because they didn't like the previous guys. But where was I with this? The question was about young people, yes? And okay, so I think one of the mistakes of the liberal elite before the conservative government was actually also instrumental treatment of the European Union as a source of money, source of modernization, but also the European values were not treated seriously enough. They were seen as something, okay, we have to do it. We are so civilized, we were democratic, we abandoned communism, so it was taken for granted. And I think right now, with this, especially with this protest, with these values being at risk, I think young people actually realize what these values are. And when they fight for them, I think they will protect them. This is not something that they learned in class in their civic education, you know, that they have to later write a test. What are the European values? Yes. This is something real for them, something that has a serious meaning. And for this reason, I think that maybe we will, in the near future, hopefully, but if not near, then in future, we'll build a more democratic society. So I think this painful lesson hopefully brings only something positive in the future.